troublemaker. I've been a late-night player. I've been broke as a joke. I've been a money maker. I've been a record breaker. Taking credit as an educator. I've been known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing. Popping, lock, and stop and let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip-hop, it's like it stings. We make the whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk. We gotta have that funk. We kick it old school. We think we're so cool. We take it back to the past. We gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger. Make my Jaeger just.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Sports Buzz, a Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio, Comcast Cable, Channel 23, downtown Danbury, Connecticut, on this sweltering spring day. Record highs. What was it, up to 90 degrees the last 2 days?
Yes.
Unbelievable, this heat wave. I think I saw more spring like normal weather upcoming, pleasant in the 60s or so in the next week or so. So maybe this is one big huge hit of heat, and then we'll get a little bit more spring-like before summer actually arrives. But yes, very hot out there. And we are in studio, of course, live again, and the phone lines are open. 203-792-4101 is the number. On this May 3rd, we have turned the calendar, which means I just had a birthday there, Bob.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Anybody want to call and wish me happy birthday? Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that. And we are here until 7, so it is the fastest moving talk sports show on the land and the dial and all that. So get your calls in early if you want to call. 203-792-4101 is the number. My right-hand man, Mr. Bob Raw Jr., is here. Hello there, Bob. How was traffic on your way in?
It was murder. Literally, it takes me like almost 30 minutes to come from my house, which is only, up off of...
that Reservoir Street Bridge knocks everything out of whack. It's been screwing me up. I know that because that's my back way out of town. And Bob's Show Spotlight on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. Our director, Mike Toohey, is in there running things. Expose Cinema, Friday nights at 9. Wednesdays at 1 is his show. We are joined by a trainee who did a great job as my crew was late. Thank God Tyler, the new trainee, was here. Kid from high school in Pomperog, actually, and he's been learning the ropes here. He helped me get everything set up. He is running audio, I do believe, tonight, right now. And as we speak of audio, let's make mention, Fatty Roots in the background playing the music. They are at the Ancient Mariner this Sunday. Good time, usually up there on a Sunday afternoon playing some reggae music. So I think I'm going to be checking it out. And they got some other festival stuff coming up that we'll talk about later, but I did want to mention that. We should mention the Celebrity Breakfast again.
That's coming up on the 8th.
June, and we are in May, so that means about 30 days away. Chris Chambliss will be the guest speaker on the 24th annual Celebrity Breakfast held by the Danbury Westerners as they get their season underway a couple days early this year before the breakfast, and they'll be home that night as well at Rogers Park, right?
Yes, they will.
And the event is, of course, at Amber Room. I wonder how the ticket sales.
We're at average right now. I think we're over 300 as of right now.
So not quite sold out yet, but
not yet, but it's
getting
climbing.
Filled. So make sure if you're interested in that, you should get on it. You got about 30 days left, 35 days until the breakfast ensues. It's early in the morning on a Friday.
Yes, it is.
And but it's a good time, and we are pretty certain that Chris Chambliss will be a good get for the Westerners and have some good stories to tell.
He's flying in the night before, so we might have him actually doing some other stuff as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, well, we will see. Speaking of baseball, there was some day baseball today. Actually, speaking of baseball, let's get to something we've done recently a couple times. A friend of mine who watches the show, Melissa, thank you very much. She gets the Daily Chronicle at her workplace.
Really?
Yes, she works in one of the assisted living facilities in Newtown, and she read some of these things to the people that live there to, enlighten their day. And we have a sports thing on the Daily Chronicle from yesterday.
Okay.
So on this date yesterday, 1954, What player set a Major League Baseball record by hitting 5 home runs in a single day? What player? He was a Redbird.
Stan Musial?
Stan the Man Musial of the St. Louis Cardinals. 5 home runs in one day. And here is the quote of the day from Stan Musial. When a pitcher's throwing a spitball, don't worry and don't complain. Just hit the dry side like I do.
Yeah.
Good quote by Stan the Man.
Yeah.
All right, so that's that. But speaking of baseball, there was some day baseball today for your New York Metropolitans, Bob. Another bad day at the office. What's going on with the Braves? Surging past the Mets into first place, 11-0 today. Was that a sweep of the series in Citi Field? Mm-hmm. So they come home off the road back, and they lost, what, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 to the Braves in that new, is it the new stadium? What's going on? The Braves got that new stadium in downtown Atlanta. They moved out from the southern part of Atlanta, and they got the new stadium. But the Braves are hot right now, 11-0 against your Mets. The Yankees were up 3-0, and then they were down 5-3, and in the 9th inning, they got 3 runs to win it 6-5 in Houston. So the Yankees continued their hot stretch. Unbelievable. They're winning extra inning games, come from behind games, late inning rally games, low-scoring pitching duel games, blowout games, any way you want it.
How far behind your Red Sox are they?
Not very far. We're going to get into Major League Baseball standings at the end of the show. I did want to just go over the scores, but I would expect them to catch and pass my Red Sox sooner than later with the way things are going. Nationals, speaking of your Mets, Nationals getting hot right now. Won their 5th straight, 3-1 over the Pirates. Dodgers and Diamondbacks are still in action right now, 1-1, I believe. Blue Jays and Indians in a back-and-forth affair. The Blue Jays were up 5-0 in this game, but now they fell behind 7-5, but they are winning 8-7 in the 8th. As we started in the first of 2, they're playing a doubleheader today, and the Royals beat the Tigers 10-6 today. Royals, not so great. Tonight, it's Red Sox at Rangers, Twins at White Sox, Orioles at Angels, and the Athletics at the Mariners. So that was the baseball action from today. You cannot be feeling too good about what's going on with your Mets. They did get good news injury front, though. Yeah. And we'll get a little bit more into this when we do baseball later in the show as well. But your Jacob deGrom was not nothing serious with that elbow action coming out of the game. Was that yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
So that was good news, at least for the Mets. All right, NBA action. There's actually a game going on right now, so I don't know who's watching us.
Right.
Why does the NBA have a playoff game starting at 6 o'clock?
It's like I said, I have no idea.
It's not Saturday, it's not Sunday, it's Thursday, and yet they have the Cleveland-Toronto Game 2 game going on right now. Toronto's up 16-10 in the first quarter as we went live here. Crazy, and how about that? Cleveland... I mean, Toronto was winning this whole game one the other night.
I thought they had it.
And they couldn't hold on. It went to overtime. They lose 113-112 in game 1. Toronto fans and players got to be thinking, here we go again. Yeah. They cannot get past Cleveland at all. They took care of the Wizards in their first round series. Cleveland was forced to go 7 with Indiana in a great series, and Indiana was there, and they had it for the taking, but they could not get past them. Some big help off the bench in the fourth quarter. And, of course, Bron went for, 45, I think, in that Game 7. But he did get huge contributions from George Hill, Kevin Love off the bench in Game 7 in the fourth quarter to help them get past Indiana. And now they're looking to rip the hearts out of Toronto once again this year. We'll see, but the game I'm looking at for this evening is Celtics-Sixers Game 2. That means the Celtics did get past Milwaukee in Game 7 this past weekend, and it turned out to be a typical Celtics home game in Game 7 in the playoffs as they ended up running away from the Bucks in that Game 7. So they did get past them. And then in Game 1, Bob, 117-101.
Right.
No Jaylen Brown. He went out with a hamstring injury early, could not return. So they're still down, of course, Kyrie Irving.
Right.
Jaylen Brown, their leading scorer in the playoffs, he goes out. Terry Rozier, and that was actually, so they go to Terry Rozier. He gets 29 points. Jason Tatum gets 28, and Big Al Horford gets 26. 3 guys in the upper 20s, spreading the wealth, and they handled Philly, who was red hot, and took care of Miami in 5. Remember, Philadelphia also had the 17-game winning streak down late in the season. So the Sixers came in as the hottest team in the East, and really the NBA, and they had moved to, I think, the favorite to come out of the East. The only problem is they are a very young team.
They are.
Led by Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And the Celtics' defensive plan was to let Embiid get his, and he did go for 31 in that game 1, but they defended the three-point line very well, and the Sixers struggled mightily from the arc. Beyond the arc, I think they only made 5 or 6 three-pointers in the game. The Celtics were red hot from deep. Terry Rozier, I believe, had 7 three-pointers of his own.
Right.
So 21 of his 29 points came from beyond the arc. So the Celtics look to take a 2-0 series lead over the Sixers tonight. This is a matchup that is the most times these two teams have matched up in the playoffs more times than any other teams in NBA history, Bob. You know, in the 60s, it was Russell versus Chamberlain.
Right.
There were some matchups in the 70s as well. And then in the 80s, it was Dr. J versus Larry Bird, Moses Malone, Andrew Toney, Mo Cheeks against Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Tons of matchups. The Celtics do lead the season, the overall series. I think it's 11-7, as this is the 19th time these teams have matched up in the postseason. So there's been some great historic matchups, a lot of them in the 80s. I remember when I was like 10 and 11 years old, back-to-back years, when the Sixers went up 3-1 on the Celtics in one series, and the Celtics came all the way back. And Kevin McHale, I said something along the lines, they had us in the coffin, but now we got 1 foot out of the coffin, and we're going to Game 7. And they did win that Game 7. The following year, the same thing happened, and the Celtics rallied to force a Game 7, but did not win it. And that was, I think, the year that the Sixers won the championship with what a lot of people call one of the, if not best teams all time in NBA history, single season. They only got the one championship in that 80s run the Sixers did with those great teams, but they did it in impressive fashion. That 1 year, Celtics, of course, won multiple times in the 80s. So it's a great matchup, historical matchup with some new, young, great players on the scene on both sides. So we'll see what happens in Game 2 tonight. Last night in Houston, everybody was writing the Jazz off after Game 1. I don't know why they were doing that. The Sixers got a lot of attention down the stretch, but the Jazz and the Pacers, for that matter, did not. But their records were just as good in the second half. I think the Pacers had the 5th best record overall in the second half of the season. The Jazz, likewise, the same thing. And what did they do in Game 2, Bob? They held on for a 116-108 victory over the Rockets to even that series 1 game apiece. And they were up 19 in the first half, and the Rockets really went on a huge run in the third quarter. And you thought maybe this young Jazz team would wilt after that as they fell behind, but no, they went on another run of their own to close out the third quarter, and then really just took care of business in the fourth and won it going away kind of by 8 on the road against the Rockets. Warriors are up 2-0 on the Pelicans. So the Pelicans, after sweeping Portland, have run into a Golden State team, has now gotten Steph Curry back. So he's coming off his injury, and he looked good in Game 2. And they held on in a pretty good game in Game 2 against the Pelicans. So they're up 2-0. Rockets tied 1-1 going to Utah now. Warriors will head to New Orleans for Game 3. We'll see what happens in tonight's NBA games. As we mentioned, Sixers, Celtics later at 8:30. Cavs and Raptors going on right now. In Boston last night, however, in a playoff matchup, and we were talking before the show started, Bob, for the first time in a long time in any playoff matchup, whether it was my team or not, win or lose, I was a little bit bored by the action in a Stanley Cup playoff game, which never happens. These games are tooth and nail usually, but the Bruins made a huge mistake early on a lofted-in puck into their end. The defender lost track of it, got turned around, turned it over, and it was a quick goal 3 minutes into the game. And then, to add insult to injury, it was 2-0 right away for Tampa Bay, who has had very limited success.
We had a phone call.
All right, let's see who we got.
Maybe a strange man?
Let's check that out. We'll see if we get the audio, and Tyler gets the audio turned up for the phone. And we'll see if that works. Hello, this is Sports Buzz. You are live and on the air. Who we got on the line?
Hey, Sky, this is Strange Man. Sorry I couldn't make the studio tonight.
That's okay, Strange Man. We'll take you on the phone. We were just getting into hockey, Strange Man. What do you want to talk about? And that boring, terrible game last night.
Short and sweet.
Okay, here we go.
Go Bees and go C's. Strange Man over and out.
All right, Strange Man just calling with his support for the Boston sports teams in the playoffs. We talked about the Celtics already. They're in a better position than the Bruins, who are now down 2-1 to Tampa Bay. And I believe Tampa Bay, in their history, had only won 8 games ever in Boston Garden. And they win it last night, 4-1. They got the empty net goal late. But the Bruins never could get anything going. They gave up the 2 goals early, the big, huge mistake right away.
And they had quite a few penalties last night.
And then there was 8 penalties on the Bruins in this game, which at home is just like, wow, really? So anytime they tried to get a little bit of momentum, they did cut it to 2-1 on their only power play in the first period, but then they gave up another goal at the end of the first period to go down 3-1. So the momentum went off again right away. They were in the penalty box, throughout first period, second period, third period. So if they tried to get momentum, they would end up back in the box. And they couldn't get anything going, despite the fact that Pedro Martinez was there as the honorary fan with Bobby Orr.
Really?
Yeah, and they were trying to get the crowd into it, but like I said, there was never any energy, never any flow to the game, any excitement in the game, because they were down early, they were in the penalty box, and they just couldn't get it done. And so they were out of rhythm, and nothing happened. So they are now down after winning game 1 6-2 in Tampa. Then they lost game 2 4-2, which you weren't all that upset about. You take the split on the road, and that was a good game, game 2. You thought they'd come home, maybe get going, but no. Now they're down 2-1 in a bad spot as they move on to game 4, which is tomorrow night. How about this for a turnaround, Bob?
Okay.
You got Celtics at home tonight.
Right.
You have, I believe it is Northeastern University having graduation at the Boston Garden tomorrow morning. Ooh. And then you got the Bruins at home tomorrow night.
Them guys are gonna be cleaning that place.
Who is working there? That is unbelievable. What a schedule that is. Kenny Albert gave me that information in the call last night.
That's insane.
Yes. All right. So other NHL action tonight. It is Capitals up 2-1 against the Penguins. Capitals now dealing with the suspension for 3. But they lose one of their first line guys to a 3-game suspension for the hit that did not even draw a penalty, and it was reviewed in the game. That's draw a penalty.
Very unusual.
But he is a repeat offender, Wilson. He has a history of big-time shots. And then when you take into consideration, he broke the jaw of the player for Pittsburgh, and he was concussed as well. So they say repeat offender, injury to the player, who is out for the rest of the playoffs. And he is out for 3-game suspension. They lost game 1 3-2, but they bounced back 4-1 in game 2, and then 4-3 on the road in Pittsburgh. And it was Ovi with the late winner. How about that goal, Bob? Did you see that goal? It hit the post, and then he was sliding past because it was a point-blank shot.
Right.
And he swatted the puck out of the air on the deflection off the post into the net for the winner, late 4-3. They're up 2-1 on Pittsburgh. So, yes, we were rooting for the Capitals to finally. That's tonight. And Predators and the Jets are tonight, as well as the Jets. Winnipeg, a team nobody has talked about all year.
No,
they're up 2-1 on the defending Western Conference champion Nashville Predators, and they're scoring a lot of goals, Bob. They won game 1 4-1. They lost game 2 5-4 in double overtime.
Right.
And then they came home and won game 3 7-4. So they are lighting the lamp with regularity. So watch out for them. And then the other series, which is not on tonight, is tied at 2 apiece as the Sharks got that series tied up. Vegas in their first season ever, really being tested now by San Jose, a team that has been in the playoffs every year pretty much, and they've gone deep sometimes. This series is pretty tight as well. Game 2 and 3 went overtime.
Right.
One went double overtime. Both finished at 4-3 scores. So it's back and forth. Vegas, San Jose did win game 4 4-0, however, last night. And I believe game 1 was 7-0 in favor of Vegas. So 2 games in the middle,
right.
Tight in overtime, and then 2 games on each side with blowouts. So we'll see what happens in that series going forward. All right, I wanted to do a quick Kentucky Derby preview. That is this weekend, and it falls on Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, yes, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, so it should be. That is a traditional. Remember, in years past, I used to have some great Cinco de Derby parties. Not so much anymore, but that's a whole other story. But the 144th running, the Run for the Roses Kentucky Derby is on Saturday. I think the weather should be pretty good.
It should be.
There is no Gronk. Did you know that there was a horse named Gronkowski that was actually running very well? That was in the running, in the field, and he had to pull out last week, I believe, with an injury, so he is out. The favorite is Justify, a Bob Baffert horse at 3-1 as of today. Mendelssohn is second at 5-1. He's trying to become the first ever European-trained horse to win the Kentucky Derby. That'd be interesting. Magnum Moon is 6-1 favorite, but I heard stay away from Magnum Moon if you're looking for somebody to pick. That is not a horse to pick, according to what I saw. The long shot, if you're looking for a long shot right now at 30-1, My Boy Jack is the guy who's getting some attention as a long shot.
Well, if you have played horses in the past, and I have done that, you might put them in as a, especially if you're going for a triple. Mm-hmm. You might put them in there just as the mix.
Right, and you want to try to get some odds. 3-1 odds, 5-1 odds. You're not going to get much on that.
No, but you always throw a long shot in just as a. Yes. Because that long shot might just out of the blue.
So the long shot that I heard to go for is My Boy Jack. There are 21 horses in the race. We'll see how it goes. Speaking of other things that took place outside of the big 3 sports that we cover, the Champions League soccer, as we got about 5 minutes left, Champions League soccer second leg action took place over the last 2 days. And on Tuesday, it was Real Madrid. This team, I tell you, man, speaking of horseshoes, they got lucky horseshoes in their back pocket or something. The German goaltender, I don't know what he was thinking as he got caught in between on a ball played back to him by his own man and let it go past him. So Real Madrid escaped Bayern Munich. 2-2 was the score. If Bayern had won that game 3-2, and Bayern had over 20 shots on goal in this game, which you never see in a soccer game. They had 11 corner kicks. Outrageous. They could not get the third goal, which would have sent them through against Real Madrid. They had all the pressure on them. And as I mentioned, the German goaltender gave them the gift of all gifts by misplaying a ball, played back to him by his own man. They advance on aggregate, and they move forward. And Liverpool, despite losing 4-2 at Roma, advances on aggregate as well because they won the first leg 5-2. So hats off to Roma, who lost 4-1 to Barcelona in the quarterfinal and rallied for the 3-0 victory and advancement on away goals against the powerhouse Barcelona in the quarterfinal. They almost did the same thing as they rallied for a 4-2 victory at Roma after losing 5-2 at Liverpool. So hats off to Roma, who was not anybody's pick to make it this far at all. You know, they were surprised to get out of the round of 16, really. And so hats off to them, even though they do lose. So the final is May 26th, which is a Saturday in Kiev, as they get really tuned up now for the World Cup, which will be in another month or so. I believe early July is when that starts going down. All right, only a few minutes left. So we mentioned some of the baseball scores at the beginning of the show. Let's mention some standings now. The Braves, Bob, moved to 19-11, winning 5 in a row. Your Mets have now lost 3 straight, getting swept by the Braves. They moved to 17-12. So the Braves are now in first place. That hot start is a thing of the past. Still 17-12 record is not bad for your Mets, but not looking so good with the way they're playing recently. Philly at 17-13.
Say, if they're in first place for the first month, hey, anything else is gravy.
Well, that's the Mets mantra, I guess. Nationals winning 5 in a row. They are creeping up the ladder, moving to 500 now at 16-16. Philly 17-13. Some other things in the National League: Brewers 19-13, Cardinals 17-12, Cubs 16-12, Pirates 17-15. So 4 teams remain above 500 in that Central Division. And out west, Diamondbacks, who were playing today against the Dodgers. We don't have a final on that, but they were 21-9 going into action. Dodgers still under 500 at 13-7 before today's game. Rockies 17-15. Giants have moved to over 500 at 16-15. Red Sox clinging to first place at 22-8, 5-5 in their last 10. Yankees coming off this 6-1 road trip, moved to 21-10. So they are only 1.5 before the Red Sox play tonight at Texas, I believe we said earlier. So we'll see what happens if the Red Sox can hold that 2-game lead over the Yankees, who are red hot. Yankees coming home now for Cleveland, Boston, and the A's before heading out on a interleague game. They'll be playing the Nationals. Down to a minute. Toronto's at 17-13. Despite what they did today, we don't know what the final was. Cleveland, the only team over 500 in the Central at 16-13. Houston losing today, losing 3 of 4 to the Yankees, moved to 20-13. The Angels 18-12. Seattle 17-12. Oakland at 500 at 15-15.
Are we?
We are live next week. So we'll be back here. We'll talk about the Kentucky Derby, see who won. We'll see if your Mets get back on track or if they fall even farther back and the Braves keep winning. We'll see if the Yankees ever lose again, or if that's it. We're all going to resign ourselves to the fact that the Yankees are just going to be a juggernaut from here on out. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you to our trainee, Tyler. I don't think anything went wrong, so that's good. And we'll see if we get him helping us out again some other time in the future. We will see you next week.
Have a good weekend.